Hey guys, welcome back to, oh wait, I'm fitted today. So you guys, I was so lazy with the Halloween themed outfits this year. This is probably as good as it's gonna get this year, to be honest. So if you don't know what this is, I think these are the little alien guys from Toy Story, right? So anyways, hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another video and welcome to the first video in October. I am very, very, very excited about this spooky season, probably more excited than I've been in a few years. I don't know if it's because my mental health is better or I'm just like in a better place in life in general, but I am just so happy it's October. I was thinking about it in the car the other day and I was just like, it's really interesting how humans get so excited for seasons and how it's like normally I could act like it's Halloween all year round. I can have decorations all year round if I wanted to. I could watch, I do watch scary movies year round, but there's something about it literally being October, the weather, the rain, the storms, like it just feels so good. Anyway, I'm so happy it's October. I'm so happy that you guys are here. I do have some good stuff lined up this month and it's gonna be a really, really busy month. So I really didn't have a lot of time to exert on the outfits. Although I would have loved to, honestly, in an ideal world, I would be fully dressed like every October video, like a full costume. But I don't make enough money for that to happen, so we're not doing it. But today we're literally just sitting down and chatting because I've had a crazy week. I've been moving things around like crazy in the apartment. We had friends over last night. It was like a big doggy play date. I'll throw in a photo here. They were so cute. They were so good together. And overall, I just don't have a lot of time to film today because I'm already so like last minute trying to get everything uploaded. But I opened up my questions and asked for some like fun / educational / quick video ideas, and one came in that I really loved, and it was essentially like, how do you work smarter and not harder in this hobby? And I thought that would be a really like cool thing to talk about because nothing on this list are you gonna find as like brand new information that I've never talked about on this channel, but like I've talked about it in bits here and there, and it's not really in one collective video. So I think this was a really good one, especially if you have been like me over the last, I would say, few years, where I'm just trying to find like my happy medium with collecting and trying to find the right balance between life and plants. So I put together a list for you. I did have help from Alice and Jing. They gave me some ideas, but we're just gonna like sit down and talk, and I'm gonna tell you guys things that I do in this hobby that make it easier for me to maintain all of the plants that I do while still having enough time to like bathe myself. This guy has just been like playing peekaboo. I totally forgot I had these pillows actually, and I wish she was still making them, but she closed down her shop last year. I think it was last year. Okay, so anyway, just getting into the first one. I wouldn't say that this is like the most important one, but definitely like when I think of this question, it's the first one that comes to mind. I'm like, you gotta get this one first. Like this is gonna help you so much. And that is timers, like timer plugs or like Wi-Fi bars. Wi-Fi electrical power cords? What? Wi-Fi electrical power bars? Essentially, they're like little plugs that are Wi-Fi enabled, and you can control them by an app on your phone, and you can create a schedule for when it goes on and off. So every single grow light in this house is powered and controlled by like a timer plug. They have old school ones because not all homes, or like, I think it has something to do with like wiring or like your Wi-Fi, especially if it's like an older home, they're not for some reason all compatible with the Wi-Fi plugs. And I think Alice is an example of that. She has to use like the old school like timer ones where you like literally set AM, PM. It works just as well. I just find that like the Wi-Fi ones are a lot easier to program. Those have been such a game changer for me because before I used to go around every single light, switch them on. And it was like kind of, I don't know, it became sort of like a morning ritual. and it didn't feel like so much of a chore until the collection got huge. So back when I was in my old unit, so before I moved into this place, I had probably only 3 grow lights that I had to turn on. 2 of them were in the kitchen, so it was like as soon as I would walk into the kitchen to make my morning coffee, it was like click, click, those are on, and then another one in my living room. So it wasn't like that difficult, but now that I have plants out here, I have plants in my bedroom, I have plants in my plant room, it's just too much. I believe the schedule is they come on at 9 a.m. and then the ones out here turn off at 9 p.m. and then the ones in my plant room turn off at 7 p.m. And it's just nice to not have to think about it. And especially if you're traveling or if you have like a crazy work schedule that week, you're out late or whatever, like it's already done for you. You don't have to worry about it. And then your plants get like on a good schedule, you know, and there's a little bit of like normalcy to their schedules rather than it just turning on and off whenever you're able to turn them on and off. So I highly recommend getting these. It's such a small, in my opinion, it's such a small investment for like a large payoff, and it helps you reclaim your time and just like helps you take care of your plants better so that you can like focus your energy on doing other things. So I will link the ones that I'm using in the description, but there's so many that you can use, and I'll also link the ones that I think Alice is using in case your house is not one of the houses that you can use these Wi-Fi plugs with. One thing I recommend, so with these lights, you don't need to plug in one light to each little Wi-Fi plug, right? What you can do is plug in like a tower or like, you know, those electrical bars, plug that into the timer so that you have an entire bar or an entire tower that's controlled by this one plug. Don't buy like 20, 30 different, you know, plugs and have them all go into that one. Someone did ask me that, like, how do you manage to like get all the lights into the plugs if there's not enough outlets? This entire back area behind me is controlled by 2 Wi-Fi plugs, and then the one in my plant room is controlled by 1 Wi-Fi plug. So it's very, very handy. They're all on the same schedule and it's just much easier to manage. Okay, so the next one on this list is greenhouses. I know that not everybody has the luxury of having like huge greenhouses. I don't mean like you need like a walk-in greenhouse. I don't even have that. I'm not even saying that you need a fancy tent. I'm not saying you need a fancy cabinet. Just get something that can function as a greenhouse, especially for plants that you are stressed about in terms of humidity, watering requirements, warmth. It just takes off the edge on feeling like you are on the hook for making sure they're okay 100% of the time. I have like a pretty good assortment, I guess you can say, of greenhouses. I have the Millersville Wide, I have a red stuff for my Hoyas, I have quite a few Exos, I have an actual tent, and so I've kind of like arranged my plants with each kind of greenhouse for their needs. So like with my tent, that gets the warmest, it gets the most humid. I've put a lot of my like imports in there. I put rehabs in there because they just bounce back a lot faster. Anthurium that don't need a ton of humidity, I put into a lower humidity exo, and it's just easier to like care for them when they're not all out in the open like this. Like I can tell you that pretty much all of my plants that were in greenhouses didn't have spider mites. It was just the plants that I was dealing with outside that were like unprotected, I guess, that had spider mites. So even in that regard, it's easier to take care of. I'm not saying you need anything like my setup where I have multiple greenhouses everywhere, but even if you can get like 1 greenhouse or 2 greenhouses, find something on Marketplace or find something on Craigslist that's really cheap. You don't need anything fancy, just something to enclose that humidity. And you can even like DIY or repurpose like fish tanks. You can find a lot of free fish tanks online too. So I highly recommend doing a greenhouse, not for your entire collection, because for me that's not very practical, but at least the ones that you stress out about a lot. Next one is gonna be controversial, but you know what? It's not that I have an agenda on this channel, but I feel like I've said this enough times or I've made enough videos about it that I can just say this with my entire chest. No drainage. No drainage for me is like the easiest way to take care of plants without having to spend so much time watering, making sure things aren't drying out to the point that it's getting dry rot. I know that the argument of having drainage holes is that it's easier to water because you don't have to be so controlled. You can just kind of let things flow and you can flush things out. But for me, it's kind of the opposite. Like, I find that having no drainage holes, once things are acclimatized to it, it's like I'm watering a lot less with my plants with no drainage. I do have still quite a few plants with drainage, and those ones, like, throughout, like, all year, not even just during the summer or spring, like, they have to be watered so often. Some of them, like, drip out of the drip trays, and it just is a little bit, I don't know, it's a lot of work, especially if you have like a hanging plant. A lot of people will like remove the entire plant, bring it to the shower. To me, that is absolutely not in my schedule. It's not within my patience, and I just know that like I wouldn't do it every week or as often as it needs to be done. I can barely even just like spray my orchid every few days. Like, I always just forget. So with no drainage, it's like, once you get the hang of it, and once you kind of understand your substrates and you understand how to do it correctly, it just makes caring for plants so much easier, in my opinion. And I really could not be in this hobby and have as many plants as I do if I wasn't able to grow with no drainage holes. So I will link a few videos down below of sort of the no drainage videos that I've done. And hopefully there's enough in there to kind of get you started, or at least help you understand why it can work. Again, I'm not here to convince you that no drainage holes is like the best way to grow or the only way to grow. But if you're like me and you're a more mindful waterer, like you're not the type of person that's just like wants to just like drown everything, let it flow, and then, you know, you're on to the next. Like, for me, I'm very like intentional about my watering, and that really is conditioning because I've been growing with no drainage for so long. So if you're like me, you don't want to be watering all the time, and you just need you need your plants to stay hydrated for longer, give no drainage a try. This next one, I don't have a ton of experience to speak on. I do have a little bit of experience, but I know the benefits that it has, and I've experienced those benefits. And that is using predatory bugs. So I actually am getting a shipment of them in. Lauren ordered like a couple hundred predatory bugs. I think she got spickle mites, and that is for spider mites. And I would love to always have predatory bugs, but I find it to be quite expensive. So in the quantity that you are able to order it from the website, they're kind of large, which is why a lot of people have to sell off, you know, individual packets to people locally. And I'm just not, for me, it's too much of a hassle to like disperse it amongst other people. I just really want as much as I need, but I can't just order like 20, 30 sachets, you know? So I'm kind of at the mercy of like other people buying it. And it does get expensive because you have to do like, I want to say one sachet per plant is good, especially if it's outdoor, like not in a greenhouse, because I think the hatching rate or the mortality rate is a bit lower than if it's in a greenhouse. Inside of a greenhouse, I'd probably do like one sachet for every 3 plants, especially if they're all touching. But for an area like my living room shelf, I would want to do 1 sachet per plant. And if you count how many freaking plants I have in this house, like it's probably gonna run me anywhere from like $60 to $70 every 6 weeks, and that's just not in my budget at all. But if it's in your budget, or you have way less plants than I do, predatory bugs is such a great option, not even just for full-on outbreaks, but for preventative reasons. It helps you like sleep at night. It gives you some like breathing room in terms of having to do preventative things like I'm always having to do. Because you, like as Lauren says, it's like you have these little soldiers that are just running in the background, you know, trying to find anything that's not supposed to be there. And I used to use predatory bugs primarily for thrips, and I don't really have that problem anymore. Spider mites is like the one thing that's like the bane of my existence right now, which is why I've been working so freaking hard the last few weeks trying to get my spider mite outbreak under control, which it is now, thank goodness. But now I'm like in a good place to bring some bugs in just to maintain where it's at. I still have a few plants here and there that definitely have spider mites, but not like a full-on like outbreak like it was before. So I'm excited to bring those in. I will definitely show you how they're gonna be used, probably in the week of that goes up this month. But yeah, if you can afford predatory bugs and you don't mind predatory bugs, I highly recommend using it. I've used Swirsky mites and oh gosh, I can't remember. I'll throw in the name of the bugs that I was using for thrips up here, and then a few that I've used for spider mites. You just want to make sure you do your research and make sure that the one that you're using is gonna be okay in the area that you're using it in, because some bugs will not hatch or have a high mortality rate if it's in like low temps and low humidity. Some of them really need that boost in order to hatch and to survive, so you might just be wasting your money. But I get mine from Koppert, and there's another company that people have gotten them from in the past that I've used and I didn't like them. So Koppert is my #1 recommendation. The next two are kind of like they go hand in hand, and I've done like dedicated videos on this because I feel so passionate about it, and that's keeping your plant supplies organized. So that's one of two. I know that it can be kind of a daunting task or something daunting to wrap your mind around because we use so many things: pesticides, fertilizers, substrates, supplies like trellises and plant tags and Velcro ties, all of our pots. Like there's so many things that we have that come with being in this hobby, and it can be really easy to just like shove them on a balcony or shove them in a bathtub or just shove them in a corner. And then anytime you need to like repot something or do something, that initial thought of like, oh my God, I have to find a clean pot, I have to go onto my balcony and like dust off spider webs and just get as much as I need, like that kind of stuff would definitely deter me from doing the things that I need to do in this hobby. So in a way, my like OCD tendencies have kind of played in my favor in this hobby because I'm so kind of neurotic about keeping things really like, this is where this goes. Everything that I have needs to have a designated spot. I don't want not even one thing to have just like I'll just shove it here because it fits. Like I feel like everything I have, #1, I need. I've gotten rid of any excess things that I don't need, like an excess of plastic pots. I always think, oh, I'm gonna need it like when I purge or whatever, but it's like the reality of it is that things just accumulate so fast, and then you don't even realize that it's gotten to a point where it's like taking up space in your house that can be used for other things. So my recommendation is to get organized, and the first place that you can start is just throwing shit in garbage bags that you don't need anymore. If you haven't touched it in forever, whether that be some kind of fertilizer or like a spray bottle that you thought you were gonna use, like just freaking get rid of it. Like don't even bother with it. If you haven't touched it in months, you probably don't need it. I think the motions of actually getting rid of it, like holding it and getting rid of it, is the hardest, but once it's gone, you just feel so much better. So get organized that way. There's plenty ways that I would recommend getting organized. One, get a plant supply cart. I will plug in this video here. I'm gonna link everything down in the description, so after this video, try and give some of those a watch if you need some inspiration on getting organized. So a plant supply cart for me has been just life-changing. I love my little cart. It's alleviated a lot of space in closets that I needed for other things. If you can put substrates in bins, that to me is like the easiest way to access them, rather than like keeping them in like the plastic bags that they come in and putting them, again, I feel like a lot of people like put their substrates on the balcony or in the backyard, and to me it's just not accessible that way unless you're doing all of your repotting on the balcony or in the backyard. For me, I would much rather keep things in bins and then refill them as they empty out, so you can keep your excess soil outside or whatever, but the ones that you're gonna use right away, like just have a little reserve of it so that it's easier to access. And then last is like putting your fertilizers and like liquid things that you use often into pump bottles. I again have another video on this, or I did a video on this showing it, but like I have 3 of the fertilizers that I use most often in pump bottles, and that has been so much easier for me than like picking up a clunky bottle, like getting my dropper and like taking out how much I need. Like to me, like sometimes before I used to not even fertilize, like I would skip fertilization days because I was too lazy to just get the damn bottle and get my measurements. Now it's like I have it in a pump bottle, and it's as easy as just being like, okay, well I know this sprayer gets like 3 pumps of this, 2 pumps of this, and it's so much easier. It's so satisfying doing that rather than the way that I did it before. And I find that I'm on a better fertilization schedule now that things are more accessible. And then in terms of other things you can put in bottles, like I have my alcohol in a bottle, I have my hydrogen peroxide in a bottle, I have my callusing powder in a bottle or in a container. And that's really just making things more convenient for you so that you're not having to think about mixing things and having to get out 10 million different things just to like, you know, repot one plant. Like it's so much easier when things are just laid out for you. It's already there, it's easily accessible, and it's organized. Little things like that, they just add up. And I'm not saying that you have to like get organized all in one day or all in one week. Like just do things slowly. Like nobody's pressuring you to do it, you know, it's really just for yourself. So yeah, that would be another recommendation. Another thing I wanted to mention, and this kind of goes along with growing in no drainage, and that is growing in clear vessels. So you can see behind me that most of everything I have is growing in clear glass vessels. And not only for me is it like an aesthetic thing, like I think it looks better when you're not having like different colored pots and everything looks crazy. Like I just like the clear look. You can just see your roots. Like you can see exactly what the water lines are in there. You can see if your roots are healthy. You can see if anything's gone bad in there. You can see if you have root mealies or something. It's just, it takes a lot of the guessing out of diagnosing what might be wrong with the plant. You just have everything you need. It's right in front of your face, you know? Like I do have some plants that are not in clear vessels, and sometimes it'll be looking a little sad, and I'm just like, okay, is it spider mites? Is it thirsty? Is it root rot? And I have to like physically like remove it from the pot just to like see what's wrong. And I don't like having to do that all the time. So now but you know, with having clear vessels, you just know exactly what you're looking at. You can see if there's no more water left. You can see if it's wet rot, and you know like, okay, it's either not getting enough light, or I overwatered it, or there's too much fertilizer. Again, it's so much easier to diagnose things with your plant without having to like poke and prod at it. So if you guys are comfortable with growing in no drainage, you can even like drill holes into glass. I personally don't do it because I don't need it, and I'm too scared to do it. But if you guys are comfortable in growing glass vessels, to me that has been probably the #1 game changer in this hobby for me. And for everyone asking, I usually get my glass vessels at thrift stores or at the dollar store. The next one is one that was actually brought up by Alice, and I'm surprised I even forgot to add it on my list myself, but it's the use of mycorrhizal inoculants. So I have been using Myco for 2 years now, and I can say with complete confidence that it has changed so much for me. I mean, I'm not gonna like discredit the fact that I have 2 more years of plant growing under my belt, and I have just like learned a lot through trial and error and research and experiments, but I feel like Myco has done things for me that is just beyond my luck or my skill set or whatever, my green thumb. Myco, you know, it helps things become more drought tolerant. It helps the roots uptake more nutrients. It makes it more resistant to pests or environmental factors. It helps with transplant shock. So many things that like are kind of unavoidable almost. It just kind of strengthens their immune system, essentially. I've read a couple things here and there about mycorrhizal inoculants only working in soil and not working in things like pond, but I don't know if I've ever read like any scholarly article that can back that, because I don't know, for me it's like the results that I see from Myco is like almost undeniable. And you know, something like repotting a plant and then seeing roots, like brand new crazy healthy roots just a few days later, to me that is a product of maybe a plant with good genes, but also a plant that just has a strong immune system because of its relationship with the Myco. It isn't like the cheapest thing ever. There are different brands that you can get. I recommend either Great White or Billions. Both are water soluble, both last a very, very long time. I'm re-inoculating honestly, probably every other month right now. And my plants have just been so good for it. Like, I just find them to be way more resilient. I'm losing a lot less plants to shock when I'm repotting. Even though my plants have pests, it's like they haven't reacted as poorly as they would have, I think, in years prior. Kind of like my big gloriosum, when that got spider mites, it's almost like it had no defense mechanism or any immune system to kind of fight like all the nutrients that was being depleted from it, from those spider mites, and it just threw a fit so fast, just went completely yellow. Whereas now, like, I have some plants back here that have spider mites, but you wouldn't even be able to tell because they don't react as poorly to them anymore. It's not until it gets really, really, really bad that you can see some damage, or if it attacks like an emergent leaf, that's totally different. So in that way, I'm really, really happy with the use of Myco, and I cannot see myself ever going forward in this hobby without using it still. Another one that Alice mentioned were the semi-enclosed moss poles. In the beginning of this channel, I was using just sort of your traditional moss pole, either the ones that look like corn dogs. It's essentially a stick with moss kind of wrapped around it, and then you like use string to keep it on there so it looks like a corn dog. And then I was using the other like netted moss poles. At the time, that was really all I knew. That's all that I saw being used in the hobby. It's all I saw online. So I was kind of just like at the mercy of that. But I didn't find a lot of luck using it. I thought that for a long time I was doing something wrong, or maybe I just like wasn't paying enough attention to them. But those moss poles just did not work for me. It really wasn't until I started using the semi-enclosed moss poles, either if you're using a lazy pole or like the pre-made poles that I'm getting from Lauren. There's so many poles on the market now. Like, there's plenty that you can choose from with small shops, Amazon, whatever. And it has completely changed my relationship with philodendrons. Like, I loved philodendrons before. That was like one of my first loves in this hobby, and it still is. But sizing up plants was so difficult, and I'd have plants that would revert so fast, and I just couldn't keep up with the growth of it, and the, you know, keeping the moss pole like hydrated enough that like the roots would actually root into the pole. But now with these like D-shaped poles, it just makes it so easy. Everything roots in it so fast, and my plants have just sized up like mad. And I'm just so happy that this has become like a more popular thing, and that people are making moss poles, and that there's so many available now, because it's just changed everything for me. And they look a lot better, you know, because they're clear, well, as clear as they can be. But to me, they look so much better than any moss pole that has ever been on the market before. I know that some people don't love the look of moss poles, but truth be told, if you're not seeing a lot of growth with your indoor aeroids that are supposed to be climbing, you might not want to hear it, but it's probably because of the pole. I see a lot of posts on Facebook all the time about people asking like, why isn't this plant sizing up? I put it on a pole, it's just getting smaller. But they're always like a bamboo stick or the traditional moss poles, and those work fine if you're in a climate that like naturally it would size up just fine without like the D-shaped moss poles. Like obviously in the wild, they're just growing up trees and shit. But if you live like somewhere like Florida or Indonesia and you just have like a bamboo stick, it's probably gonna be totally fine, honestly. But I'm talking specifically growing indoors in a climate like me. Like I literally live in Canada and I have a house full of tropical plants. I just got a glimpse of myself. I look ridiculous. So yeah, getting those moss poles to me have changed everything for me. And if you've been fighting the urge to get it because you think that it's gimmicky or it just, you know, it doesn't work as well as like the traditional moss poles, I think that's a hill that I'll die on for sure because I've tried everything. So yeah, give those a go if you're looking for like an easier way to size up your philodendrons or just keep them happier in general. And then the last one is something that has been a theme for the month of September, and that is just quality over quantity. I don't think that this is something that someone can just tell you to do. I think you have to be ready to be there. I think you have to want to be there. And I think it just depends on where you are in this hobby. Like in the beginning, I can fully say that for me, quantity was everything. I wanted to have every single plant, all the cool plants that were being shown on Instagram. I had to have it. I wanted my space to be just this lush jungle. Like I didn't want to see any walls. But the deeper that you get into it and you realize the woman hours it takes to care for that many plants, you just come to the realization that it's just not sustainable, it's not practical, and you kind of become miserable. I think unless plants is like the only thing you ever do and you have all the time in the world to take care of them, then maybe you're the exception, but definitely not the rule. So for me now, I'm just trying to condition my mind to not want to like collect. I don't want to like, I know we refer to this as like our collections, but like I don't want to be like, I'm gonna collect every Lux hybrid. I see, and this is really no judgment, but I see a lot of posts on Facebook specifically where it's like they'll have lists of different like philodendron or different anthurium and be like, can anyone tell me what I'm missing? I want to collect them all. And there's nothing wrong with that if like you truly do see this as a collection, but I think where a lot of us go wrong is that, yeah, it's all fun and games to like collect them all, but they're not like Pokemon cards, you know, like they are living things that have needs all the time. And so to want to just like collect it because it's part of this like greater collection, like if you want to collect all the royals, the white knights, the pink princess, the white princess, a red Anderson, you know, all of those, to me it's a little bit more of like a gimmicky thing to want to collect plants just because they're part of this group rather than collecting plants that you really, really want. And something that I'm hoping to get across on this channel this year, and I've already like pushed Alice to do it, is to just like regain your time back, because I know that I make plant content and I guess my purpose on YouTube in this space is to just like convince you that plants are like these magical things that are good for your mental health. They're so much fun. They bring so much purpose to life, and that's all true. But I hope that like I'm not contributing to people wanting to just amass plants just to do it, because I've seen, and I've talked about this before, I've seen it go south where someone collects purely out of addiction rather than like the actual love for it, and it always ends up the same way. Financial turmoil, mental turmoil, and it's just not healthy. And I feel like that's one quick way that you will learn to hate this hobby. So if anything, I urge you guys to really take a step back and like look at your collection, like really look at them and think, when's the last time I was super, super excited about the growth of this plant, or excited about a new leaf that came out, or who has just been living here because I've had them for years and years and it feels weird to get rid of. I'm not saying like to just purge your entire collection of things that like don't bring you as much joy as your favorite plant, but I think most of us, if not all of us, have at least a handful of filler plants that we've kept that we don't really love, that we just have because we've had them for so long. And even if you can alleviate 5 plants or 30 plants, anything is gonna help make this hobby easier for you. So for me, even now, even though I don't have as many plants to show you guys anymore on this channel because I've gotten rid of so many, now that my collection is looking a lot more bare, like you guys can see how empty my shelf looks. And that's because I've gotten rid of so many plants. I've just been chopping leaves like crazy, but I'm so, like, I just feel good. I feel like now, like, I know exactly when things have been watered. I don't feel like I'm in a rush to kind of care for them. Sometimes I'm just kind of like twiddling my thumbs, like, okay, well, these have been watered, like, now what, you know? And that's where I want to stay. That's the place I want to be. I want to be more like, I want to be more bored. That's a good way to put it. I haven't in the last few years have had a chance to be bored. Like, nothing to do, everything's been done that I need to do, and like I'm always just on the defense, I feel. So I just want more time for myself, and I want the time that I'm spending with my plants to be a little bit more meaningful and not just be something that I'm doing as a chore. So I'm glad that the person that recommended this video topic did, because I don't know if I ever would have thought about it myself. Again, I know that none of this is like brand new information, but I think it's nice to kind of have it all in one video and just kind of as a reminder. So again, I'm not trying to influence you to do anything, but if you've been looking for a push to kind of get your mind right with this hobby, I hope this helped. I hope some of these tips kind of gave you some ideas on how you might be able to like shave off some time in terms of caring for plants. And if it did, then I have done my job. So anyway, I'm gonna go. Happy spooky season, everyone. We have a lot of good videos coming up and I hope you enjoy them. But for now, I'm gonna get out of here. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and I will see you in the next one.